Welcome, everybody, to our Lift Up Women in Life Sciences live broadcast. We're back once again, and today we are talking about parenting and professional ambition and redefining what is possible. I've got three phenomenal key speakers that are keen to join me in the studio today, but for any of you that have not maybe joined us for the Lift Up live broadcast before, I'd love to do a little bit of an introduction. So Lift Up was born around 3 years ago, actually, 3 years ago, coming up September. We've done 24, 25 live broadcasts. We've had over 100,000 global views with over 80 key speakers join us on this mission. And our Women in Life Sciences ambassadors have done a phenomenal job helping create the mission, which is to connect, inspire, and champion women right from academia all the way through to C-suite within our life sciences space. So if you haven't met me before, I'm Louise Williams. I am the MD here at Fraser Dove International, and I'm very excited to talk about the parenting and the professional ambition with you all today with Ulrike, Falk, Julie Pentz, and also Charlotte Meschnet, who's been all in the industry for extensive period of time and really interested in sharing their experiences and career journeys with you. But what I want to talk about very quickly is obviously this topic has been one that's been growing within our community group over the last 6 months. And interestingly, globally, mothers face a very steep setbacks from 40%, I think, employment gap, around a 30 to 50% pay penalty compared to their male counterparts, and do unfortunately record much higher stress and higher burnout within the workplace. But the positive news is that momentum is building, should I say. It's building better parental leaves globally, which is great. We're seeing more flexible working, certainly since the COVID period. And companies are really turning some of these barriers into opportunities and redefining now, what's possible for women to career, trajectory, climb the ladder and reach, senior VP and C-suite level roles. So that's really super exciting. So today, what I'd love to say to all of you that are dialing in from an audience perspective, if you haven't joined us on a live before, is pop into the comments where it is that you're dialing in from. Obviously, put any sector, area of life sciences that you're currently in, and say hello to your network. The beauty of this Lift Up group is that, for 3 years now, we've really built over 2,000 followers as well within our community page. And we often see a lot of regular attendees join us. So please pop into the comments where it is that you're dialing in from and say hello. And then as we go throughout this live broadcast, we want it to be as interactive as possible. So pop in a little queue in front of any questions that you maybe want to ask the panel, myself here, and I'm going to try and navigate throughout those comments as we go throughout the live and bring them up on screen and try to get those questions covered off for you. But without further ado, I'd love to bring in our first key speaker. So we've got Ulrike here. Thank you very much for joining us. If you would do an introduction to the audience for us.
Yeah, I'm very happy to do so. Well, first of all, thank you, Louise, for this nice introduction, and also I would like to say hello to everyone on this broadcast. My name is Ulrike Falk, and I'm a pharmacist by background, and I'm more than 25 years in pharmaceutical industry. I was in the last role, the quality head for the entire BioPharma network at Boehringer Ingelheim, and before that, I worked for Roche and Pfizer, so the real big pharma companies, so to say. And my background is a pharmacist, and after the PhD, I immediately went into industry because I always wanted to work in industry, and I'm still happy that all I have done so far is really what I really love to do throughout the whole 25 years. Thank you for being here. It's a privilege for me, and I may bring a different perspective to this conversation.
Thank you, okay. No, and it's an honor to have you here as well as part of the panel. Thank you for that introduction. And Julie, if you'd love to do an intro for the audience as well, please.
Hi, thanks, Louise, and welcome to all. I'm excited to be here. I'm a chemical engineer by training. I have a master's as well. And immediately after graduate school, I joined Merck in the manufacturing organization. I moved through a number of different roles. I started in a leadership development program, went into shop floor manufacturing. I'll talk about career pivots later, but that's one that I then made, moving into procurement. I did external manufacturing, I did supply chain, risk management, all at Merck, and then had the amazing opportunity to join Merck's spinoff company, Organon, which is a company focused on women's health, something so near and dear to my heart. I did a leadership role there, and now I'm the Chief Procurement Officer at Organon. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the personal side as well. Again, my partner, Brian, is a fantastic spouse also in pharma. So great to see his career, and he's been such a great supporter. And I have 2 boys, 11 and 13, who keep me very busy as well. And we'll certainly talk about that piece. Excited to be here today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you for the intro. And we actually did a women's health equity broadcast a few months ago, and we actually had Martha at Organon join that. So it's lovely to have you here today. Thank you for joining, Julie. And certainly last but not least, we got Charlotte. Thank you for joining us. If you could do your introduction for us, please.
Thank you so much, Louise. It's really a pleasure to be here today with Ulrike and Julie. I'm a scientist by background. I have done a PhD at EPFL in Switzerland. I have always wanted to work in the healthcare industry. So as you, Ulrike, I'm very happy with, what I have achieved so far. I have also a master's degree in biotechnology and an MBA done quite recently in the healthcare industry as well. I have over 20 years of experience. I would say a bit atypical. I changed quite a bit. I started in research, operations, then I switched over to quality control, then quality assurance, regulatory affairs. Went, over different scope as well, small molecule, cell therapy as well, and in vitro diagnostics. So quite different. It's such a pleasure to be here today. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and very happy to discuss a bit around parenting with everyone.
Thank you, Charlotte. Phenomenal career as well. I feel like there's a lot of pivots that have gone on throughout your careers, which is definitely worth us diving into. And I have a 9-year-old daughter as well, and a 5-year-old son, and certainly keep me busy outside of work. But yes, thank you. Back to the audience, really, because we've got some people dialing in. So thank you so much for sharing. Keep these comments coming through. We've got Zuki here from Reading, so a bit local to myself. Katerina, hi, I'm joining from Italy. Thank you for this super hot topic. Love that. Thank you for joining. We've got Yasmin joining here as well from Switzerland. Got lots all over the place. We got a LinkedIn user who's obviously got their privacy settings set to private only. So unfortunately we can't see your name, but dialing in from Atlanta. So that's fabulous. We've got Charlie here in our London office that's dialing in. We've got Evie from London as well. So thank you very much. Keep the comments coming through. And as I may have mentioned right at the beginning, in case you missed it, if you've got any questions for our guests here, just pop in a little queue in the comments and I can bring them up on the screen as we move forward. So let's set the scene. Identity, ambition, maybe a good question to kick off with is something like this. So how have your career ambitions evolved over time, and what personal experiences outside of work have perhaps influenced that evolution? Parenting is obviously a huge one and a huge milestone at that point in many people's careers. But maybe I'll come to you, Charlotte, with this question first, if you don't mind. So yeah, sure. when you transitioned in, how have your ambitions maybe changed, if not at all?
A little bit at the beginning, I would say, maybe the first year. Actually, I changed job pretty much quite soon after starting again, after my maternity leave. I really wanted a change somehow. And I accepted a job in a small company. It was my first time in a small company. Before that, I worked in big pharma, a bit like Ulrike and Julie, working at Novartis, Genentech, and J&J, actually. Mm-hmm. And then in building up a cell therapy facility in Lausanne. So an amazing project. But after that, I needed a change. And I accepted this job again in a small startup company, GMP, cord blood biobank. I was cord blood biobank director. Mm-hmm. And in that job, I didn't have to travel so much. So I really had the flexibility. The team was young. I still had actually a nice team to lead. I'm sorry. This was almost 15 years ago, but it was eventually I had QA, QC, and operations. So still a very nice responsibility, but quite flexible. I didn't have to travel. Yeah.
Did you take a
And
step back? Just interestingly, so was that after you came back off of maternity? Was that a change in role or company?
mm,
Was it a different
it
level of
was,
position or?
to be honest, not really. I was a director, and before that, I was also director. And soon after that, 6 months after that, I had a promotion to
Brilliant.
overseeing all operations. So in a way, it came, you know, quite flexible, but eventually more came.
Yeah.
So it's also a lessons learned. You never know what will come, and it's
Hmm.
very important to listen to yourself at the time. But eventually, it will come very fast after that. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Charlotte, for sharing that. Yeah.
Thanks.
And same question for you, Julie. Did your career ambitions evolve over time, do you feel?
Absolutely. I think everyone's career ambition should evolve as you have different experiences. You should always should learn and grow. I mentioned I started in manufacturing pretty young in my career. I knew at that time I wanted to be a chemical engineer and I wanted to run a manufacturing plant. And after 3 years of doing it, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do for my career. So having that experience, I learned a ton from it, but then I made a pivot and that led me on the
Yeah.
trajectory I am now. But I also reflect outside influences. I know that was the question. And I was
Mhm.
pregnant with my second son, and I was in a job that I loved. It was external manufacturing, and I had to travel to a number of CMOs. And that
Mm.
can be pretty intensive. Leaving one young baby at home,
Yeah.
I knew leaving two at home would be a challenge. And I
Yeah.
knew we could have figured it out if I wanted to, but I didn't want to put that additional stress at the home life and on me.
Mm.
So I
Mm.
remember having that conversation with my manager at the time and being direct. I loved this role, but the travel was going to be too much. And it was the most fantastic conversation. I was very transparent with him. And he
Yeah.
said, Julie, go look for the job you want then. I'll support you. Let's go find it. But the best thing he said to me was that if you don't find the job you want, we'll make the one you have now work for you. We'll figure out a way you could do it without the travel. So that gave me
Brilliant.
such confidence to look for the role I wanted, knowing we'd make something work. So a couple
Yeah.
of career pivots in there that were really helpful for me.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's really. And Julie, had you worked with that manager for a while? Did you have a good, oh, it sounds like you probably had a good relationship and understanding there.
We did. It came from years of communication. He had probably been my
Yeah.
manager about 2.5 years at that time. So again, having that track record of good performance and someone
Yes.
that they knew they wanted to keep at the company and said, we'll make something work for you.
Yeah. Love that. I love that. No, thank you for sharing that story, Julie. And Eureka, same question to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I have maybe a little bit of a different story. But first of all, I always wanted to work in pharmaceutical industry, as I said also in my introduction. And I did so for 15 years at Pfizer. And I never questioned myself that I want to go in a career. It was always clear that I want to have children as well. So, and my
Mhm.
husband and I, we were very clear about that. And it was also clear that we will think about what does it mean for any career path and so on later on. Unfortunately, it never happened for us.
Mhm.
And even with medical aid, it didn't work. And we still don't know why, but then I
Yeah.
had to rethink. And but along this way, which took us more than 15 years, I have to say, I was never questioned this question at my workplace, but I
Mhm.
was constantly asked to take over other roles. So I never really planned my career. I planned more having a family and have a career, and then I
Yeah.
had to rechange my plans, right?
Yes.
And when I was in my mid 40s and was asked by a headhunter to join another company and go outside of the small molecule world into biologics and steroids manufacturing, that was then the
Mhm.
way when I said, okay, I have to rethink, and maybe I have to now make my disadvantage, how I consider it,
Mhm.
into an advantage and expand my experience. And that's why I joined then after 15 years Roche, although some
Mhm.
of my coworkers said, we thought you are married also with Pfizer. And I said, no, I'm happily married, but not with this company. And so I decided to leave the company that I really liked. And
Yeah.
only when, after 10 years, when my father, no, 8 years, I have to say, this was at the time when I had the global role, I had more to travel and so on. And then my father died. And this made me rethinking, I have to say.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then I was the first time that I didn't take up the next role. I said no to the next role, which would have included much more traveling. And then my former boss pulled me over to Boehringer, and that's why then I took over this entire network. And I thought I had less traveling included, but in the end, it turned out it was even more traveling. And then I had to make a decision, and that's why I'm in a sabbatical at the time being.
Right,
First time
I
ever.
see. Yeah, well, amazing different pivots and some very difficult life journeys and hurdles that you've obviously had to go through there. Maybe we can come on to some of those, because I know that we've talked previously around some of the challenges that you faced, maybe internally, work-wise, perceptions, assumptions, because you don't have children. So it's a slightly different perspective to this conversation as well, which is why I thought it was really, really intriguing to bring through in these conversations. But let's just talk about the parenting penalty then. This is a term that's obviously used quite a bit globally. It is a real thing. And, my question to you, I guess, is, do you think parenting changes how ambition is potentially perceived? And what have you noticed perhaps in others' experiences with this? So it's an interesting question. I'll come to you, Charlotte, with this one first, if you don't mind.
No worries. And here I would like to give a small story. In one of the position I had, I had in my team two amazing ladies, and both were young mother. And I really wanted to promote them both at the same time, and they could cover basically the same role together and help each other really, but at the same time grow in their career. I made this proposal to the CEO to whom I was reporting at the time, and he mentioned to me, no, they're not ready. And to me, they were ready. So I convinced him and I promoted them both. And I just want to tell that story because I love doing that, helping women to know what, first of all, know what they want, because not all women want the same, right? We're all different. Women, men, some have ambition, some others like routine and don't want to change. Everything is fine as long as you speak up and say what you want. And I'm quite proud of this. So I just want to mention it.
Yeah, and you're advocating, aren't you, for your colleagues as well there?
I am a lot.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, where some women maybe don't always feel very comfortable in expressing, and that is a barrier that we know that often a lot of females are having to break and face and push themselves out those comfort zones and be a little bit more vocal. It's good that you've got someone advocating. Yeah,
exactly. And something else I want to mention, it happens that also some other people will say, I don't have to say anything, or they feel they don't want to speak up, exactly like you said. And it's really about speaking up and saying,
finding your inner voice. No, I completely agree. Julie, what's your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I did a lot of reflecting on this question, and I fortunately never felt I did experience this challenge. I'm a chemical engineer by training, so I wasn't the only woman in the room, but certainly fewer women in manufacturing and in chemical engineering. So I was used to always having to speak up and bring my voice. But I did do some reflecting, thinking about this. And what I think is so critical is to always make sure you're checking in with your manager, your management team, to make sure you are meeting expectations. And again, I had my kids a little bit later in life, so I had a nice track record of delivering and knowing I could be counted on. And when you have that, it kind of slides away thinking about those external factors, whether it's children responsibility, family, other nonprofits you might be responsible for. So always be checking in, making sure that you are delivering. And if you're not, then do that course correction. Because once you're known as someone who can be counted on, who can deliver on expectations, then those outside factors become a lot less relevant.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very good advice. And, I've got two children, so I've also done a bit of reflecting on this question and topic, but I too, I got made an associate director 6 months before going on maternity leave. And at the time I was really pleased by that, because I didn't think that in some cases being promoted, because I was pregnant and they knew that I was pregnant at that point, and I worked my absolute hardest all the way up to then going on maternity leave. Like you said, checking in on, are you progressing, hitting your milestones, achieving your results. And then when I went on maternity leave, I was then promoted whilst I was on maternity leave. So when I came back, I knew that the next step for me was divisional director. But when I check in with myself and think, oh, how did that happen? A lot of that was just because I had to check in with my boss to say, I know I'm pregnant and I know I'm going on maternity leave, but I still want to climb the ladder. I'm not going to have lost my marbles when I return. I've been doing this for a period of time. So have faith. And thankfully, when I returned, I also was the only person that returned on 4 days a week. And I did that for 7 years. So I think, finding your inner voice, speaking up, and sometimes having the difficult conversations can go a long way. Well, you think they're going to be difficult, and then they don't always end up being as difficult. It's a lot in your head, isn't it? So yeah, Ulrike, what's your thoughts with this?
Yeah, I mean, the first thought was, of course, okay, I can't say anything to this question, but then I thought, well, maybe there's a different view again.
Yeah, manage teams, people you've managed,
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
things you've seen. Yeah.
Exactly, because I was very often confronted, with this kind of assumption. Yeah, because you don't have any kids, that's why you can work so hard. That's why you can be so flexible, and that's why you also have to take over maybe work on times where no one else want to have it, like for Christmas, for example. Yeah, and that
Right.
made me
Yeah.
rethinking as well. Or being sent to another country without asking my husband, so to say, because having no kids means you have no family, so you can just,
Yeah.
you have the highest
Yeah.
flexibility you have. And then I thought, okay, is it the picture I want to take for myself, or is it something that others think about you? Or especially when people, mainly women, I have to say, told me, yeah, you're only so successful because you have no kids. And then I have to say, no, that's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really relieved also some pressure for me. And then I started also to look, okay, what can I do, especially not having kids, in order to make the environment we are working in. I have always been in leadership roles, to create an environment that this is not a question any longer.
Yeah. Love that.
And
Yeah.
just look
Do
for
you
those
feel?
women who are,
Yeah.
who are delivering, like Julie said, and also willing to take on the extra mile, because in the end, it's more about this, and it's more about what you are willing to give. And as a leader, you can look for those colleagues and then ensure that they have the opportunity to grow as much as I was allowed to grow.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And it is really important, because what you don't want is that isn't that even distribution of workload or assumptions, and you're having to do extra travel or extra workload, work more hours, do a part of somebody else's job, and then you're facing burnout and stress and lack of boundaries, and when you're cutting off work, and it's not pleasant. I feel like we're making advancements in the industry that we're in, so that's maybe something to come on to, albeit maybe still a bit of way to go. Quick question here on playing the parent card, because this came up on our community channel. Because do you think it's ever necessary to downplay family responsibilities to be taken seriously, or should we always be upfront about them? And this was a really interesting one that come up. Real split in thought processes here. So what do you feel, Julie, with this? I'll come to you first with this question.
Yeah, so my advice, first of all, is to never lie. I mean, you should always be transparent. You should never make up a story, because that's worse, to get caught in a lie and your integrity is challenged. Then I would just read the situation. When I'm procurement, if I'm meeting with our chief financial officer to go over our savings for the quarter, I'm not going to start with what my kids' soccer scores were for the weekend. So just make sure you're thinking about, what's the context of the session, and how's that information going to be, applicable. But if it's a lunchtime conversation, I love talking about my kids. I'm at the soccer field all the time, and that is a big part of my life, and I love bringing that forward. So just always read, what the context is. But if there is a reason you need to miss something, or you need some flexibility, I always encourage you to be open about it. If you're in a situation where you might not feel totally comfortable, think about just saying, I have a personal commitment, and leave it at that. No one needs to know the details, but be transparent about what you do need in that situation.
Yeah, love that. Good advice, Julie. And Charlotte, what are your thoughts with this question? Then also putting a bit of a spin on it from a candidate perspective, maybe at interview stage or applying for jobs, where a lot of people are sometimes feeling like they have to downplay their responsibilities, or sometimes not even mention that maybe they've got children, that can go against them sometimes in processes. What's your thoughts with that?
Great question. I think going back on what Julie said, I think it depends on the context. I don't always mention I have a kid. It depends really to whom I speak. In interview, yeah, that can happen as well, that I don't mention it as well, to be honest. But for instance, I have an example. I was the last 10 days in China. And at some point, I was going to come back in 2 days instead of last night. And I came back because tomorrow is the birthday of my daughter. So there was no way
No, you're going to miss that.
I was
No.
going to miss that. So just to give you an idea, and I have no problem speaking about it with my colleagues if it's the right context, like Julie said. So it's all a balance, I would say. And it's also making sure that the people in my team can speak up. It's not, all about me, let's say, but still, I love sharing, of course. It's, we have one life. I love my job, that's for sure. I also, my daughter knows I love it. And I think that, and I can speak a bit more maybe in another question, but it's a balance.
100%.
It's a role model as well we play as a leader, but also toward our family, our friends, our children. And I think it's just amazing if we can have the chance to be happy and to
find the right balance. No, I completely agree. And Ulrike, I'd imagine that from a have you ever seen this go against anybody throughout your career or in your workplace environment or within teams? No. Always be authentic, always be honest.
I think that's exactly the main point, and Julie also phrased it very nicely. But first of all, I also would say be more relaxed about it. And look, it depends on the situation. And for example, in situations where you really have to show up as a person, because we are humans, we are persons, then it's more than the right thing to do to share what's also in our private life. It's not just only the professional life. The professional life is a big part of our private life. And that's, for example, also in the hiring process, I'm always interested to see and learn and understand better the person behind. And it's what you said, be authentic, and then you know what you have to do in every individual situation. So it depends.
I love that. No, I completely agree with you. And just coming back to the audience quickly, because we've still got people dialing in, and we've got Fiona from Toronto. Thank you so much for joining, and Candice as well. Love this, very important topic. Thank you for sharing your stories and your pivots. I have 2 boys, 12 and 14, very busy as well, dialing in from the Orange County. We've got everybody from all over the place at the moment. We've got somebody dialing in from Germany as well. We've got Alexander from New York. Thank you very much for joining. So we've got some questions coming through here, which is great. I'm just going to cover off a quick one about career gaps just before I come to the comments. But career gaps, we should be seeing them as a strength. I think for many years, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you had a gap in a CV and it was a bit of it's like, oh no, what's happened there? And I think now I feel like the industry's evolved, and whether it is family illness, whether it is traveling, whether it's educational purpose, whether it's motherhood, parenting, there is a gap in one's life where they're obviously taking a bit of a gap at some point in their career. So how do we position this as a strength, I guess, is the question here, and how can we try and switch the perspective to see it as an added value rather than it being a negative, and help females and people in the audience today maybe build a bit of confidence if they are in a gap right now, or taking a career break, or in maternity, paternity, coming back into the career environment. So what's your thoughts with this one, Julie?
So I was very fortunate. I took 2 career gaps, I'll call them, but it was maternity leaves. I was very fortunate. I was at Merck at the time, and they did have a really comprehensive program. It wasn't paid or anything. I'm very envious of some other countries that have really, really comprehensive maternity leaves. But I was fortunate I was able to take those that time off, because it's a major bodily change, right? Not only are you bringing a body into this world, your body changes. And being able to take that time to just recover, hopefully catch up on a little bit of sleep, it just made me be a better human being when I came back to work. When I was pregnant with my second, though, was when I mentioned that career pivot. And I was, same story as you. You were just told, I was about 8 months pregnant, interviewing for a new job. And I was really transparent that I was taking that full maternity leave. I wasn't going to say, oh, well, I'll come back sooner. I wanted to take that time, and I was very transparent. And it was awesome. They hired me and held that role for me. And I came back so energized and so committed to that role, knowing how much they had done to hold that position and said they wanted me. So that brought me that energized, a little bit rested. I still had 2 babies at home, but at least a little rested and ready to come in and return to the workforce.
Yeah, that's a really important piece. And I think to any advice to people listening in is, if you're being transparent and you're putting yourself out there and you're honest around those situations, and you're not feeling like you're getting back what it is that you're going to need or want, then maybe the value alignment or maybe the cultural alignment is just not going to be there. So don't force it or try to make it work. Continue looking for something else. And I think that's something that I've learned a lot from just speaking, obviously, in the industry that I'm in, is if something isn't right culturally, your value alignments aren't there, then go and seek something else. Don't feel like you have to be forced into that environment or stay within it. So even though we're going through a big stay in the global market at the moment, that's definitely a good bit of advice, I think. Charlotte, your thoughts with this question from a gap perspective?
Sure. I will mention, of course, as well, my maternity leave. I had the chance to take 6 months. And to be honest, 6 months, it's not that much, right? Because it's such a special time. And I have to say, the day I went back to work was one of the hardest days in my life, because you create such a strong bond with your baby that, oh my God. But you know what? After a few days, I realized, oh, yes, this is great. It's actually great to go back to work as well, right? So it's all about timing, and taking the right time, when you need. And then when you're getting back to work, actually is very good for everyone. The children, they don't need us all the time, right? They're so happy as well with their friends. I give you an example. I had maybe 1 month in between jobs recently, and I was able to go and pick my child up earlier than usual. But you know what? She was not happy. She wanted to
she wanted to play.
She wanted to stay and play with her friends. So it's just saying, I
Don't
think
feel guilty.
no, don't feel guilty. And maybe something else I want to mention. As when she was small, I was feeling very guilty. When she was 2, I started traveling every month for a few days, and she was one and a half, and I was feeling very guilty. But eventually, it goes away, and I have to say now it gives me a great balance. So it's all about timing, I would say. And sorry, go ahead, Louise.
I was just going to say timing, but it's also, you're providing lifestyle for her, for your family, by doing this, and there's nothing wrong with taking a little bit for yourself in this, your career and your passion for what it is you do is still very important. And I think that children need to have happy parents around them, and
Totally.
that's really important. And you mentioned role model, and there was something else in my head and it's completely gone from my brain. But yeah, there was, just a lot of what you were saying there is certainly don't feel guilty, and they're going to grow up and they're not going to look back and think, hang on a minute, you were away for, a couple of nights every month, but and so yeah, Ulrike, just coming to you with this, and I'm leaning into the confidence element, because there are a lot of people that, unfortunately, whether it is whether it could even be family illness. I spoke to a lady not long ago who she had her only child who fell very ill, and she had to take about 18 months, 2 years out. And interestingly, she had the daughter had a very rare disease and ended up passing away. But she ended up learning so much about that rare disease that when she entered back into the industry, and at the time she found it really tough. She's now C-suite level in the US. but she approached a lot of companies that said, no, you've had 2 years out, and that gap's not going to be, that's not going to be what we need or looking for. You're not current, you're not relevant with XYZ. And she really pushed back in some businesses and said, but the amount of exposure and life experience I have had in the last 2 years, and what I've learned, and and the positioning of that, and she's ended up with a biotech business that she said, and this is where the value alignment, the cultural piece, is really making sure that you are joining a business that understands you, your story, and she's couldn't be happier and has progressed to C-suite. And it's just a very interesting story, because I think that for companies that maybe are blinkered around seeing a gap as a negative and not really assessing the life lessons that somebody might have learned throughout that period of time, it's a waste. It's a waste, especially if somebody spent 15 years prior to that 2-year gap doing phenomenal work. So yeah, what's your advice? Maybe Ulrike, sorry, I've waffled there, but from a confidence perspective, any advice you'd give to people that may be re-entering, that are in a bit of a break or maternity maybe?
Yeah. Well, first of all, and I think that that's maybe one thing that I can share here with my sabbatical. The first thing, and you talk about confidence, is really listen to your inner heart, or even your gut feeling, because that's an excellent advisor. Yeah. And to bring it also, why do I say so? I mean, also for me, taking a sabbatical, at a quite late stage in my career, I have to say, asked also from me for some courage, I have to say. Yeah, because many people, when I said, well, especially also my last, I was always with very things. I loved the work I did. I was full, I had so much responsibility and was asked for so many things. So that's really was great. Yeah. And it really also built up on my self-confidence. And then I said, no, I have to do something differently. The traveling, I mentioned it already, was not for my inner values. And this was, for example, for the ecological footprint. I said, what am I doing here? Yeah, that's not my way for the next 10 years. I still can work. And then I said, okay, I'm making a decision, and it may be the end of my career. Yeah. And in the end, it feels like, oh, what am I doing? There's no safety net. Yeah. And maybe that's also what she experienced. There's no safety net. I pay for myself. But in the end, now looking back for the last half years, I stepped out by the end of the year. I'm happy that finally I had the time to reflect, to rethink what I have with my experiences, and that there's something more to give. And I really have to say, for example, now, in the beginning, people are asking me for the same role, just in a different company. And I said, no, look, I had so many great companies so far. That's not my role at the time being. And even stepping down, I made the experience that people say, well, you have been in such high levels, such a straight CV. Why do you want to step out? We don't believe you. Yeah. But now, after half a year, they think there must be something wrong. So the story is not consistent, so to say.
Yes.
But in the end now, and I really have to say, especially for the last 2 months, it seems there's a turning point. Yeah. And some people said, just wait, something will come and there will be this turning point. And then you know it was the right thing to do. And this is maybe something I want to share. Whenever you think you have to make something differently, take your time to rethink if you're really ready for this. And then you are. Follow it. It's gonna be all right. Yeah. And this is also the confidence I can share now. I'm so confident now because now I see a lot of new options opening. I see that I can really contribute, that I really can give back. It's not formalized completely, but it's not coming in. It's so encouraging. And that's what I would like to share with everyone here who's thinking about it. Yes, it may not look so sexy because you're not stepping from one to the next role. But once you have the confidence to share why you are doing it and can explain very well, and it's really something inside you, do it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that journey and situation. And I think it pulls a little bit into what Julie was saying earlier. It's just feeling like you can be outspoken with what you believe in, be your authentic self, speak up in and you've had this obviously inner belief, and you've found the voice to be able to share that, and now the confidence, the courage, it's all coming through now, which is really great. So great bit of advice there. Thank you for sharing that. We've got some questions that have just want to flip in here from some of our audience. So Yasmin, how did you deal with sickness calls from daycare and just general kid emergencies? Did you feel bad for leaving because your kid is sick again? So, you know, that's such a common thing, isn't it, Yasmin? You know, I don't know whether Julie, if you had these sort of situations, how have you overcome them? Have you
I had 2 boys in daycare for about 7 years, so that was any given week. We all know that cycle.
One's ill, the other's ill. Yeah.
And we could talk about how horrible COVID was, but one thing COVID did was it did normalize that ability to work from home and be very effective at home. So with that, I often, with my kid, I would get the phone call. Then the next one usually was my husband and say, who has the more available schedule? Who's open?
Yeah.
I'm very blessed. My parents live nearby. I have a sister who lives, so we had a network, and I encourage everyone, build your tribe, whether it's other moms, other people that you can count on. And then you just take care of it. I would always be clear with my manager, hey, I have to leave, someone's sick, I'll take care of whatever X, Y, and Z was. Do I feel bad? It always feels bad if you missed a commitment or you weren't able to, but I knew what my priority was, and I would always be clear how I'll get that done. But my first priority was taking care of my child.
Yeah. Love that. Thanks, Julie and Charlotte. I think we've talked about this before, actually, and having a bit of a network, because I never really thought of it before having kids, but I actually lean quite a lot on the other mums.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be like, I can't pick up my, you know, could you pick her up for me and drop her around? And so, yeah, having it's even extended beyond family, because sometimes people aren't always fortunate enough to have grandparents local, family members local. So if you can build, as you described it, a tribe of even local mums is really helpful. We've talked about that, haven't we, Charlotte?
I would love to share a small story on that, Louise, that really resonates. My daughter has a music class on Friday, and 8 of the kids of the same class go to the same music class. So it's such a great network. Every Friday, it's a different mom bringing the kids. So that helps a lot, as I'm often not here. So that really helps. Yeah. And maybe I just want to say as well, parenthood brings to be creative. At least I'm very, 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 very organized, driven, and also very creative. When you have 7 or 8 weeks of vacation, for the summer, you need to find solutions.
Yes.
Climbing lessons, or even what I want to say, once I actually took my daughter on a business trip. And during the day, she was with the daughter of one of my colleagues, with animals, with horses. She had the best time of her life. And in the evening, we could see each other. So, that creates possibility. Like there is there is always possibilities.
I love that. Thank you so very much, Charlotte. Definitely build your tribe, build your network. I've got here from Zuki, I don't have children yet and often think about family planning and timing it with my career. How did you go about this? How did you feel it affected your career, especially in leadership? Hopefully we've touched on some of these questions already, Zuki, but in terms of planning and timing, any comments maybe, Ulrike, that you'd think around planning?
I think, Julie, you said it very nicely that you also talk to your manager. And I think that is something I would always encourage. If this is in your mind, talk to your manager. And as a manager, I would always say, get rid of the stereotypes. Yeah. If you really want to make something happen, it's up to you. You can do it and you have to do it. And then just do it. Yeah. And this is because I have seen so many excellent, wonderful colleagues in my teams who then all of a sudden, of course, became pregnant because they were in those age where you normally get children. And it was always a benefit for the entire team. We found solutions. We always did. And when they came back, I really have to say some of them were even more effective with less time being on the side, and I was always in manufacturing, so really in an area where you need to be also on the side, even after COVID, I have to say. But it's really up to you to make these plannings. And one thing I would like to add, for example, I split one leadership role into 2 part-time roles, and in the end, we got 2 women taking up this role, a more surrounded leadership. The style they had, because they were kind of complementary to each other. So the entire team benefited. It was beneficial for the entire team. And it was a trial. And first, I got a lot of strange questions, but then we said we try it, and I have so much confidence in them, and it worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is nothing stopping us unless we stop ourselves, I have to say.
Yeah. Love that. Great advice. Thank you, Ulrike, for that. And thank you for the question as well, Dookie. We've got Milan who's dialing in as well. Thank you for joining us. We've got a lot of questions, but we're actually nearing quarter two. We've got Catherine here, or Katerina, if I should say that correctly. Sorry. Thank you for sharing your stories. They were inspiring. I mirror myself. Many of your experience being a mother and a full-time worker is certainly not easy, especially in some cultures. Still a long way ahead, but every step makes a difference. Happy and satisfied mothers are great role models. Thank you for joining us, and that's a lovely comment there. I'd love to we haven't touched, well, to be honest, time is absolutely flying, isn't it? But just a question here around the development piece. Just what do you feel like workplaces could perhaps do better to support colleagues who are balancing family life and career growth through your experiences of working in the environments that you've been in? Is there a particular, rather than maybe deep diving into lots, is there something individually you all feel like a workplace can do that can make a difference? Maybe Charlotte, come to you with this question first.
Hey.
You look like you're engrossed then. Maybe I shouldn't have come to you first.
Maybe Louise, I can go first.
Yes,
Eureka, do you want to give that?
Yeah. Yeah, because I already touched on one splitting. The company should split more leadership roles to make it possible also for part-time workers to take up such roles. But what I would like to add on is, and this is something that I see especially in the Scandinavian countries, and I see it also with my brother, who is a very young father currently, and with his partner, she's just going back after maternity leave now, taking up a new and broader leadership role. Encourage men to go on parental leave. That's for me something that is very, very common in Norway. My brother, he's a bioscientist in a really highly known institute. He's writing papers for Nature, and he's now on maternity leave or parental leave. And it's just normal. It's even expected. And that is something where I think the companies all over can do so much more in order to encourage also men, so that the view is changing.
Yeah, love that. I agree. And that's definitely feel like it's had a shift a little bit more in the last few years, maybe 5 years, but continuing championing that, I completely agree. Julie, any thoughts on this?
If I can build on that, it's just normalizing the conversation about talking about your family life. I'm fortunate the role I have now, I make sure I share when I do. I block the bus stop every morning for my kids. It doesn't mean I make it every morning, but it's always blocked on my calendar. I share the craziness of summer camp in the US. We talked about that 8 weeks, right, Charlotte? I share those stories so that no one thinks I have this magic bullet for how I'm able to manage it. I share those. I love getting ideas. So making sure that that conversation is normalized and how leaders across all levels of the organization are managing it. And Ulrike, I agree. It shouldn't just be the women who are sharing those. I love hearing the men share those stories as well. They want to be at the soccer games, at the kids' concerts.
100%.
Let's all share those stories and normalize how we're integrating.
Yeah, definitely.
The Netherlands is doing quite well. The Netherlands is doing quite well. So, I hear senior director or higher who work at 80%, and men and women as well. And they're very proud, saying that, yes, they will spend the day with their child. This is quite impressive. Huh? But of course, when you have a global company, that of course creates
it can make it a bit difficult sometimes.
It's not consistent across the globe, right? So that's something maybe global company need to go toward.
Evaluate maybe. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or maybe the part-time, as Ulrike said, that could potentially help if there was a bit of a shift or a pattern there. Interesting, brilliant. And last but not least, I've got to always ask this question because it tends to be one for the last 3 years we've asked our key speakers at the end. But if there was one bit of advice you'd give your younger self, it doesn't have to be topic related. It could be, completely going back in time thinking, this is what I'd say to my younger self. What would that be? And Julie, I'll come to you with this one.
So it's a great one. And I don't believe in having regrets. I think you always make the best choices with the information you have. But what I would tell myself is that it's going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. And I would just encourage myself to take as many chances, as many opportunities, say yes to a lot of things, because it will work out and you never know where that's going to lead you.
Love that. Thanks, Julie. And Ulrike, your one bit of advice?
Kind of similar. Well, first of all,
Similar?
don't take the things too seriously. Yeah, because very often they come in a different way that you would have expected. And as you said, Julie, I mean, there's so many choices along the way, and luckily we are able to make choices. We just have to take the choices consciously, and then it will be good in the end, even if sometimes it doesn't feel right in the beginning. And that's something you can take for work life, but also in your private life, I would say.
Personal life. Yeah, love that. Thank you. And Charlotte?
I love
What's
what
your-
you both said,
Yeah.
really. I would tell myself, you will go further than what you thought you would. So be
Oh, I love
patient,
that.
and that's going to be amazing.
Very inspiring. Feel very inspired. Brilliant. Look, thank you so much. We're actually at the end of our live broadcast, but I've loved talking about this topic with you. Hopefully we've given some good bits of advice as well to the audience. Thank you for those that have popped in your questions and for dialing in across the globe, really. We've actually got our Life Sciences community page, which we share all of our future live broadcasts. So make sure that you don't miss the next one in September, and you can come in and dial up and obviously get connected with the rest of the network, which is brilliant. But for now, thank you so much, Ulrike, Julie, Charlotte, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and take care and enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.